And this story is the one I never wanted to tell. There's a photo that's been making the rounds in our family group chat. Carter's graduation day. Everyone's all smiles. Except me. I'm not in it. Not because I missed the ceremony, but because no one knew where I was. Not then. 18 years ago, I walked out of my life. I didn't fake my death or flee the country. I just stopped existing where I was no longer wanted. One minute I was packing for our weekend lake trip, and the next, I was sitting in my rusted-out Ford Tempo outside a Motel 6, reading a text from my wife that said, "Please don't come back." I didn't. But let's rewind. It wasn't the affair that broke me. It was how casual she was about it. I came home one day to find a note taped to the fridge. Not dramatic. Not angry. Just, you probably know by now. Let's not make this ugly. No name. No apology. No explanation for why the man I saw leaving through the back gate was wearing my bathrobe. Leslie had always been calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that makes you feel like your feelings are loud and inconvenient. I spent years being too sensitive, too needy, too boring. I believed her. When I left, I didn't take my clothes. I didn't take our dog, Pepper. I didn't even take my toothbrush. I just left everything, including Carter. And for nearly 2 decades, I lived like a ghost. Working under-the-table jobs, drifting town to town, never settling long enough to grow roots or regrets. Until this week. Until I opened my inbox. And there was an email from Carter. The subject line read, "We need to talk. It's about Mom." And that's where the ground under me cracked open. When I saw Carter's name in my inbox, I stared at it for a long time. The subject line, "We need to talk. It's about Mom," was simple, but it hit me like a punch to the throat. I hadn't heard from him since he was 9 years old. 18 years of silence, and now, just that. I hovered my mouse over the message like opening it might somehow unravel the fragile reality I constructed for myself. A reality where I didn't exist as anyone's father, husband, or failure. But I opened it. It was short. A few lines. He didn't ask why I left. He didn't say he missed me. He just wrote, "I found something. You should know the truth about why you disappeared. It's not what you think. If you're still alive, please write back." Not what I think. What could possibly change what I saw? Her lover sneaking out through the backyard. Her note on the fridge. The sheer emptiness of being erased like a bad draft. I wrote back. My hands trembled the entire time. I didn't know what to say, so I just typed, "I'm alive. What did you find?" He responded 2 hours later. Carter said he'd been going through old boxes in Leslie's attic, things she'd stored away after I left. He found journals, dozens of them. Apparently, she used to write obsessively. He read through them, thinking he might understand his mother better. But what he found made him sick. His words, not mine. She had planned my exit. I blinked at the screen. Planned. According to Carter, Leslie had spent nearly a year writing about how tired she was of living with a man who didn't fight back. She talked about orchestrating my breakdown, feeding me half-truths, locking me out emotionally, slowly pushing me into paranoia. She wrote that she needed me to leave without a fight, so she could keep the house, full custody, and control the narrative. She called it emotional landscaping, like I was just some weed to be pulled. My mouth went dry. Carter said, "I never knew any of this. She always told me you left because you didn't love us." And just like that, my carefully constructed ghost life shattered. I wasn't just a coward who ran. I was manipulated into disappearing. And the woman I thought had betrayed me? She'd done something much, much worse. Carter scanned the journals and attached photos to his next email. Photos of messy cursive scribbled in the margins, underlined passages, whole entries blacked out in ink like she tried to erase herself but never finished the job. I zoomed in on one page, and my own name stared back at me in bold, red pen. Elwood will eventually break. I just have to keep the pressure subtle. My stomach twisted. She hadn't cheated on a whim. She hadn't fallen out of love and drifted away. No, she'd treated me like a lab experiment. A project. Some slow-burning, emotional demolition job. And I walked right into the trap. One entry stood out, dated 5 months before our divorce. She wrote, "He still believes it's his idea to take Carter to the lake next month. I'll let him plan it, book the cabin. Then I'll cancel last minute, say I have a work emergency, and watch how he folds. Every time he backs down, I win a little more." That trip, I remember it so clearly now. Carter's excited face, the fishing gear packed days early. And then the night before, Leslie telling me she'd been called in for an urgent client presentation. I told her it was okay, we'd postpone. Carter cried. I blamed myself. I didn't see manipulation. I saw failure, my failure, just like she wanted. Carter's next message chilled me even more. There's a video, Dad. I don't know how to describe it, but you need to see it. She never deleted it. It was hidden on a flash drive, taped under her old jewelry box. When the file arrived, I hesitated. I hadn't heard her voice in nearly 2 decades. Just the thought of it made my pulse throb behind my eyes. I clicked play. It was a birthday party. Mine. From years ago. I was in the kitchen frosting my own cake, looking painfully cheerful. She was filming from the hallway, whispering, laughing. He really thinks I love him. Look at him. It's almost sweet. Sad, but sweet. 1 more month, and it's done. My knees buckled. That's how she saw me, as a joke. A countdown. In my reply to Carter, I asked just one thing. Why now? Why send all this to me after 18 years? He took his time responding. And when he finally did, his answer didn't just explain everything. It changed everything. Carter's reply didn't come in words at first. It came as an audio file. No subject line, no explanation. Just a single MP3 titled, "You Deserve This." I didn't even know what I was listening to at first. There was wind, traffic, distant voices. Then Carter's voice, older, steadier, but still carrying that slight nervous shake he had as a kid when he read aloud in class. He was recording a conversation, and not just any conversation. It was between him and Leslie. It started mid-sentence. She was angry. "You shouldn't have gone through my things," she hissed. "Those were private." Carter responded calmly. "You lied to me for 18 years, Mom. You told me he abandoned us. You made me believe he didn't care." She paused. "Then, I did what I had to do. You don't understand what it was like living with him. He was weak, emotionally exhausting, always needing reassurance, always questioning himself. I couldn't breathe. I sat there, listening to the woman I once loved describe me like I was some fragile, clingy burden. Every word cut deep. But Carter, Carter, he didn't flinch. So instead of divorcing him like a human being, you emotionally destroyed him and made me hate him." That's when she slipped. Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I needed to get out, and I knew if he fought me for custody, it would get ugly. So yes, I made him leave. I made it look like he wanted out. And you believed it. That was the point." The file ended with Carter saying, "Well, I don't believe you anymore. He didn't leave me. You took him away." I must have played the file 5 times, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I don't know what broke me more, hearing her admit it, or realizing Carter had grown into the kind of man who could see through lies I never had the strength to question. That same night, he sent one last message. "There's one more thing, Dad. It's why I really reached out. It's about something I found hidden in a storage box she never let me touch. You might want to sit down for this." He attached a photo. It was a birth certificate. And under the line for father's name, it didn't say Elwood Garrison. It said unknown. I stared at that birth certificate for so long I forgot how to breathe. The word unknown where my name should have been wasn't just a clerical error. It was deliberate. It was a choice. I kept telling myself maybe it was a mistake, a placeholder. But Carter confirmed it wasn't. That document was filed years after his birth, long after I had held him in my arms, rocked him to sleep, built pillow forts with him on rainy Saturdays. I was the one who taught him how to ride a bike, how to whistle, how to fold paper planes that actually flew. And now, a line on a form told me I had never officially existed in his world. But that wasn't the real shock. In the same box where he found the certificate, Carter uncovered a sealed manila envelope marked only with a date, the day I left. Inside were letters, old letters, handwritten, some smudged from age. Others ripped at the corners like she'd almost destroyed them but couldn't quite do it. They weren't from me. They were from him. A man named Elliot. A name I'd never heard before in my life. A man who, apparently, Leslie had been seeing long before I ever caught wind of Ethan. The guy I thought was the final straw. Carter scanned and sent me the first one. It read like a confession from a man who wanted to be with her but couldn't understand why she was still keeping up the act with me. He begged her to tell the truth. He said, "Elwood isn't a bad man. He deserves to know you're not sure the baby is his." That line split something open in me I didn't know was still fragile. Was Carter even mine? I didn't know what to do with the storm inside me. For 18 years, I'd hated myself for leaving my son. And now I had to ask if I ever had a son to begin with. I wrote back to Carter, not even hiding the shake in my words. Do you want me to take a DNA test? His reply came fast. No, I already did. Without telling her. I needed to know before I reached out to you. My hands hovered over the keyboard. And I finally typed. There was a pause. Then a ping. You're not my biological father, Dad. But you were my real one. Until she took that from us. I don't know how long I sat there staring at those words. You're not my biological father, Dad. But you were my real one. It felt like someone had hollowed out my chest and filled it with wet cement. Heavy, cold, unmovable. I wanted to cry, but I didn't even know which emotion would come first. Relief? Grief? Rage? There wasn't a clear line between them anymore. He was never mine, but he was mine. You don't change a kid's diapers, kiss scraped knees, read bedtime stories every night for almost a decade, and not become a father. DNA doesn't rock a crying child to sleep when he has nightmares. Biology doesn't show up to every school play, sit in the third row with shaky hands, and cry when your kid forgets his lines but tries again anyway. But what haunted me wasn't just the truth. It was the choice Leslie had made. She knew. For years, she knew. And she let me love him with everything I had, knowing she could take it all away the moment it suited her story. She weaponized silence like it was a scalpel, carving me out of Carter's life piece by piece until I didn't even exist on paper. I told Carter everything. Things I hadn't said to another soul in nearly 2 decades. How I used to wait outside his school even after the divorce, hoping to just catch a glimpse of him through the fence. How I used to leave Christmas cards in the mailbox until she started sending them back with "Return to Cinder" stamped across the front. I even confessed that I kept a folder full of photos, drawings, and old report cards, like I was archiving a version of fatherhood I wasn't allowed to live. His next message cracked something inside me wide open. I want to meet, he said. Not to talk about her. Not to rehash everything. I just want to see the man I was supposed to grow up with. I froze. What was I supposed to say? I wasn't the man I used to be. I wasn't even sure I was anyone worth meeting. But then he added one more line. I've booked a flight. I'll be there Sunday. I hope you'll be home. Sunday came like a wave I couldn't stop. I'd spent the morning pacing my apartment, rearranging furniture that didn't need rearranging, checking the time every 10 minutes like that would speed up or delay the inevitable. I hadn't seen Carter's face in 18 years, not in person. Just glimpses online when I caved and looked him up, shadow-like, through old school photos, news clips, or alumni newsletters. I never reached out. I told myself it was respect. Maybe it was fear. When the knock came, I didn't move right away. I stared at the door like it might open on its own and take the responsibility out of my hands. But it didn't. So I opened it. And there he was. He looked so much like her it knocked the air out of my lungs. The jawline, the shape of his eyes. But there was something else. A softness in his gaze. A hesitation. Maybe even regret. He gave me a nod. Not a hug. Not a handshake. Just a nod that felt heavier than 1,000 apologies. Hi, he said. I brought coffee. You still drink it with too much sugar, right? I laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded strange coming out of me. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I do. We sat on my dusty couch, knees awkwardly close. 2 men trying to rebuild something out of memories one of us barely got to keep. He didn't start with questions. He started with a story about how, in high school, he always felt like something was off. How no one ever talked about me. How photos of me disappeared from the house overnight. He thought maybe I died and no one wanted to admit it. Then he said something that made my heart stop. She tried to get me to change my last name when I was 13. Said it didn't make sense to keep Garrison since it wasn't technically accurate. Technically accurate. That's all I'd been reduced to, a technicality. But Carter refused. And now I knew why. He wasn't just chasing answers. He was holding on to a thread of something he'd never even gotten to fully experience. Then he handed me a folded piece of paper. I wasn't going to show you this, but I found it in the box. It's from Elliot. My chest tightened. The man I never knew. The man who might have been Carter's biological father. I unfolded it slowly, and what I read inside changed the story for both of us, forever. The letter wasn't long, but every sentence was like a pulse from a life I never lived. Elliot wrote to Leslie in handwriting that tilted hard to the right, rushed, panicked even. He told her he didn't want to be a father. Not to Carter. Not to anyone. He said he'd made peace with never being part of Carter's life. He signed it. Do whatever you want. Just leave me out of it. Forever. I let the paper fall to the table, and Carter just sat in silence, watching me. I expected anger to bubble up, or maybe shame. But instead, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Peace. That man gave up. He walked away before I ever had a chance to fight. But I hadn't. Even in my weakest, most humiliated moment, I had loved Carter with everything I had. And now he knew it. Carter leaned back, arms crossed, his voice quiet. I think I always knew it wasn't about DNA. I just didn't know how to admit it out loud. We didn't cry. Not really. Just sat there while the weight of years slipped off our shoulders, one layer at a time. The next day, we went to a local park. Not for closure, not for nostalgia, just to be two people walking side by side, starting over. He asked if he could stay a few more days. I said yes before he finished the sentence. On the third night, over microwave pizza and old reruns, he turned and said, "Hey, can I call you Dad?" I didn't answer. I just nodded, eyes burning. Today, Carter lives an hour away. We text almost every day. We don't talk about Leslie. We don't need to. That part of our story is over. What matters is what came after. Have you ever had a moment where the truth turned out better than the lie? A memory you thought was ruined, only to realize it still had value? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how others found their peace, even if it took 18 years, like me. Thanks for being here.